So let's go into the web interface tab and let's create a web interface that I'm going to call main, because this is our main form, budget approval request. Then we can click on create. And as you can see, we have just created our application. So now what you are seeing is the low-code environment of RunMyProcess where you can configure your web interface. So this is going to be a simple web interface where we will simply ask the employee to provide the amount that he needs, maybe a justification, some attachment if he needs, and that's it. So we also have the possibility, for example, to configure the header of the web page that we are designing. So for example, we can add an header title that I will call here budget request form. After that, we can start adding the different components in the web interface. So I'm going to click on the widget tabs. I will be able, for example, to add some components that are called the containers, where you can have some sections. So I'm going to add a section, for example, where I will ask the employee to provide the employee information. Then I can add a second section where I will ask, for example, to provide the budget information. So now, after this, we can add some fields. So for example, I'm going to add, for the employee information, I'm going to ask him to specify his name. I can again also ask him, for example, to specify his email. And so on and so on. We can ask him, for example, to specify his department. What is really important here is that you can customize the fields that you need and so on and so on. You can ask him also to specify, for example, his hire date. Of course, if you connect your RunMyProcess application to an Active Directory, for example, this is possible. You can automatically get this information from the Active Directory. We will see later in another tutorial how to implement this kind of functionality. So now let's jump into the budget information. So regarding the budget information, what is necessary, first of all, is to put a number and ask the amount that you are requesting. And after asking the amount, we can also ask you to provide a business justification. And the business justification can be a field that you can put in multiple lines. So I can say, for example, that the business justification field can be in 5 lines. And finally, I will add another section that is going to be what we are calling the history and attachment section. So this section will contain the history. The history is a very useful widget when you want to track all the different actions that are performed in a given request. So I'm going to add the application history, and I will also add a file upload component where I will say you can add any documents that you want to attach to your request. I can save. At this step, we have just finished the configuration of our request form. So we have the possibility by clicking on Run the Web Interface to visualize our web interface in test mode. And this is how our web interface looks like in test mode. So that was the first step. So now we have the interface. This is the interface that the employee is going to use to request the budget. Then, as we know, the manager will also need a view on this interface in order to be able to approve or reject the request. So how are we going to create this view? So we are going back to our RunMyProcess configuration, interface configuration. We are going to click on the screens. So the screens are basically the different views that we are creating on a web interface. So we are going to create also one view for the manager that we are going to call manager. And what we are going to do now is that for this view, the manager view that I have just selected, we are going to say that the manager can visualize all the information, but he cannot edit this information. So when I select the section, for example, containing the employee information, I'm going to uncheck the editable functionality of this section. So all the information that are inside the section are not going to be editable. And I will do the same thing for all the other sections. So the manager cannot modify what has been provided by the employee initially. I can save. Now that we have the web interface with the different views, so what is left now is that, let me just check again, because in the launch, I want it to be editable, so the employee can provide the information. And just for the manager, it should not be editable.